The Outsider's Arrival. The massive doors of the Galactic Supremacy Academy hissed open, revealing a training hall that stretched beyond what human eyes could easily comprehend. Ethan Cross stood at the threshold, his regulation combat suit feeling inadequate among the towering aliens that populated the elite institution. At 6 feet tall, he was barely chest-high to most of the other students. Commander Vexthor, a creature with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns, approached with deliberate slowness. His 4 eyes focused on the human with undisguised contempt. "So this is the mighty warrior Earth has sent us," he announced, his voice resonating through the hall. "I had heard humans were fragile, but I didn't expect them to be quite so diminutive." Laughter echoed from the assembled alien cadets, a group of Krell warriors, their exoskeletons gleaming under the fluorescent lights, clicked their mandibles in amusement. Beside them, a trio of Celestians floated slightly above the ground, their translucent bodies pulsing with internal light as they joined in the mockery. Ethan maintained his composure, even as his heart raced. He had been briefed about this. Earth's admission to the Galactic Alliance had been controversial, and sending a representative to the Academy was more political gesture than genuine military exchange. No one expected him to succeed. No one expected him to survive. The stakes couldn't be higher. Without representation in the Alliance's military command, Earth remained vulnerable to the whims of more powerful species. Pirates raided human colonies with impunity, knowing the Alliance wouldn't intervene for a species considered too primitive to matter. "Report to Combat Circle 7. Commander Vexthor ordered, pointing with one of his 4 arms. "Let's see what Earth's finest can do." The first training session was brutal. Ethan faced a Marduk warrior, a species known for their dense muscle fibers and bone structure that could withstand direct plasma fire. The fight lasted exactly 8 seconds. The Marduk, named Grohl, simply picked Ethan up and tossed him across the circle like a rag doll. "Pathetic," Instructor Zalmar commented, her serpentine form coiling in disapproval. "Humans lack the basic physical requirements for combat. Perhaps they should stick to administrative duties." Each day brought new humiliation. The gravity training that other species handled with ease left Ethan gasping for breath. The weapons designed for larger appendages were awkward in his hands. Even the food in the mess hall was calibrated for alien metabolisms, leaving him constantly hungry and weak. But Ethan had not been chosen randomly. Back on Earth, he had been selected from thousands of candidates for one specific trait: his ability to adapt and learn from failure. Every night, while others rested, he studied. The Academy's library contained detailed files on every known species in the galaxy. He learned that Marduk warriors had a blind spot directly behind their left shoulder. Krell exoskeletons were vulnerable at the joints. Celestians, for all their energy manipulation abilities, couldn't maintain their powers in high-frequency sound environments. 3 weeks into his training, as Ethan pored over anatomical diagrams in the library's dim light, he heard a soft sound behind him. He turned to find a Silathi cadet watching him. Her species was known for their empathic abilities and distinctive silver skin that seemed to flow like mercury. "You're still here," she observed, her voice melodic. Most would have given up by now. "I'm Ethan Cross," he introduced himself. "Lyra," she replied. "I've been watching you. You fight differently each time, even when you lose." "I'm learning," Ethan admitted. "Adapting." Lyra tilted her head, a gesture of curiosity among her people. "The others think you're weak because you fall. They don't see that you get up each time with new knowledge." "On Earth, we have a saying," Ethan said. "Fall 7 times, stand up 8. For the first time since arriving, Ethan found himself with an ally. Lyra began joining him during his late-night study sessions, offering insights into alien psychology and combat patterns. She explained how most species had evolved with specific combat roles determined by their biology. Humans, she noted, were unusually adaptable. "Your species evolved as persistence hunters," Lyra explained one evening. "You may not be the strongest or fastest, but you can outlast almost anything." This revelation changed Ethan's approach. Instead of trying to match his opponent's strengths, he began focusing on endurance. He developed techniques that used minimal energy while forcing his opponents to expend maximum effort. He learned to use the arena's environment to his advantage, turning the alien size against them. 6 weeks after his arrival, during a routine sparring session, something changed. His opponent was Crix, a draconian known for his quick temper and powerful flame breath. As usual, Crix charged forward, confident in his superiority. But this time, Ethan didn't try to block or dodge conventionally. He dropped low, rolled between Crix's legs, and used the momentum to spring up behind him. Before the draconian could turn, Ethan had applied pressure to a specific nerve cluster he'd identified in his studies. Crix roared in surprise as his left arm went numb. The audience fell silent as Ethan continued his assault, targeting vulnerable points with precision. The fight lasted 2 minutes, an eternity compared to his previous defeats, before Crix finally pinned him. Impressive, Commander Vexthor admitted grudgingly, for a human. But Ethan saw something else in the commander's eyes. Concern. For the first time, someone had noticed that the human wasn't just failing repeatedly. He was learning, adapting, evolving with each defeat. That night, as Ethan reviewed the fight with Lyra, she smiled. "They're beginning to see it," she said, "what humans truly are." "And what's that?" Ethan asked, massaging his bruised ribs. "Dangerous," Lyra replied. "Not because of what you are now, but because of what you can become." In a secure chamber high above the training grounds, Commander Vexthor met with other senior instructors. Holographic displays showed recordings of Ethan's fights, each one demonstrating subtle improvements and adaptations. "He's learning too quickly," Instructor Zalmar hissed. "If this continues..." Then perhaps, Vexthor interrupted, "we need to remind everyone why humans don't belong here. The mid-term evaluations are approaching. Let's see how the human handles a real challenge." Below, unaware of the conversation above, Ethan continued his training. Each day brought new bruises, new lessons, and new determination. Earth was counting on him. He would not fail. The first phase of his journey was complete. He had survived the initial mockery and begun to earn something more dangerous than respect: attention. Now, the real challenges would begin: adaptation and growth. The Galactic Supremacy Academy's advanced combat facility hummed with energy as Ethan Cross executed a series of movements that would have been impossible for him just months ago. His body flowed like water around invisible opponents, each motion calculated to maximize efficiency while minimizing energy expenditure. "Your progress is remarkable," Lyra observed from the sidelines, her silver skin reflecting the facility's blue lighting. "But the mid-term evaluations will be nothing like training." Ethan completed his routine, sweat glistening on his forehead. "I know. They're designed to break me." The truth was, Ethan had developed something unique, a fighting style that combined humanity's understanding of physics, psychology, and biology with alien combat principles. He called it the adaptive combat system, though he kept this name to himself. The key insight had come during a late-night study session when he realized that most alien species had evolved for specific combat roles. The Marduk were living tanks, the Krell were perfect soldiers, the Celestians were energy manipulators, but humans were generalists, and that was their strength. "Show me the vortex maneuver again," Lyra requested. Ethan nodded, demonstrating the technique he developed specifically for fighting larger opponents. It involved using their momentum against them, creating a spiral motion that destabilized their balance while conserving his own energy. The mathematics behind it were complex, but the execution was elegant in its simplicity. Word of his night training sessions had spread, and gradually, other cadets began appearing. First came Zek, a young Threvan whose species was known for their analytical minds. Then Mora, an amphibious Qualith who struggled with land-based combat. Soon, Ethan found himself teaching a small group of outsiders, cadets who didn't fit the traditional warrior mold. Why do you help us? Zek asked one night, his chitinous plating clicking softly as he practiced a defensive stance. Because strength isn't just about individual power, Ethan replied. Sometimes it's about lifting others up. This philosophy was alien to most species in the Academy, where competition was fierce and cooperation was seen as weakness. But Ethan had studied human history. He knew that humanity's greatest achievements came through collaboration, not isolation. The midterm evaluation arrived with fanfare. The entire Academy gathered in the Grand Arena, a massive structure that could simulate any environment from volcanic worlds to zero-gravity combat zones. Commander Vexthor stood at the central podium, his crystalline form radiating authority. Today's evaluation will test not just combat prowess, but tactical thinking and adaptability, he announced. Teams of 4 will compete for strategic objectives while facing environmental hazards and opposing forces. Ethan found himself paired with 3 cadets he barely knew. Grax, a Marduk warrior who had once thrown him across a training circle. Velana, a Celestian energy manipulator. And surprisingly, Crix, the Draconian he had fought weeks earlier. Great, Crix muttered, smoke curling from his nostrils. Stuck with the human. The mission parameters appeared on their tactical displays. Infiltrate a simulated enemy base, retrieve critical data, and extract within a time limit. The environment would shift randomly, and they would face both automated defenses and other teams. As team leader, Grax immediately began issuing orders based on standard Marduk tactics, a frontal assault using maximum force. Ethan listened quietly, then spoke up. That approach will trigger every alarm in the base, he said calmly. We need to be smarter. Grax turned, his massive form towering over Ethan. You dare question my strategy, human? I'm offering an alternative, Ethan replied, projecting the base layout. Look at the power distribution. If Velana can create an energy surge here, it will temporarily disable the sensors in Sector 3. Crix can use his flame breath to create a thermal distraction while we infiltrate through the maintenance tunnels. The team stared at him. The plan was unorthodox, combining their abilities in ways they'd never considered. And what will you do? Velana asked, her form flickering with curiosity. I'll navigate the tunnels and disable the internal defenses. Human flexibility has its advantages in tight spaces. Reluctantly, they agreed to try his plan. As they executed the mission, something remarkable happened. Each team member found themselves playing to their strengths while covering others' weaknesses. Ethan's tactical adjustments kept them one step ahead of the changing environment. They completed the mission in record time, emerging from the simulation to stunned silence. No team had ever achieved such a high score on their first attempt. In the observation booth, senior instructors huddled around displays showing the mission replay. He turned their individual strengths into collective power. Instructor Zalmar observed, her serpentine form coiled in contemplation. This is unprecedented. Commander Vexthor remained silent, his 4 eyes fixed on Ethan. The human's success was becoming a problem. Other cadets were starting to question the established hierarchy. Some were even adopting human tactics. The following weeks saw a shift in the Academy's atmosphere. Ethan's study group grew larger. Cadets from species that traditionally didn't interact began collaborating. The human approach, analyzing, adapting, cooperating, was spreading like a virus through the rigid military structure. Then came the announcement that changed everything. The Galactic Combat Championship will be held in 3 months, Commander Vexthor declared during assembly. This prestigious tournament determines military rankings and resource allocation throughout the Alliance. Each academy may send 5 representatives. Ethan felt every eye in the hall turned toward him. By tradition, only the top-ranked cadets could compete. Humans had never even been considered, but his performance in the midterm evaluation had created a precedent. That evening, Lyra found him in the library, studying tournament records. You're going to register, aren't you? I have to, Ethan replied. This is bigger than me now. If a human can compete at this level, It changes everything for Earth. The tournament is different, Lyra warned. No rules, no safety protocols. Cadets have died. I know. Ethan's voice was steady. That's why I need your help. All of you. Over the next weeks, Ethan's training intensified. He worked with each species in his group, learning their techniques and teaching them human concepts like feints, misdirection, and psychological warfare. He studied past tournaments, identifying patterns and weaknesses in champion fighters. The day registration opened, Ethan stood before the tactical display and entered his name. The system paused, as if surprised by the input, then accepted it. Within hours, the news had spread throughout the academy and beyond. A human in the championship? Impossible. He'll be eliminated in the first round. This is an insult to our traditions. But among the jeers, Ethan noticed something else. Anticipation. Some cadets, especially those from smaller or less martial species, looked at him with hope. If a human could compete, perhaps the old order wasn't as immutable as they'd been taught. In the high council chambers of the academy, a heated debate raged. This human threatens everything we've built, argued General Kralvor, a veteran Marduk warrior. Our hierarchy maintains order across the galaxy. Perhaps our hierarchy needs examining, countered Ambassador Syleth, one of the few Silathi in leadership positions. The human has shown that different approaches can be effective. Commander Vexthor listened to both sides before speaking. Very well. Let him compete. When he fails, and he will fail, it will prove once and for all the humans belong at the bottom of the alliance. And if by some miracle he succeeds, he paused, his crystalline form darkening. Then we will deal with that problem when it arises. As the tournament approached, Ethan noticed changes in how others treated him. Some cadets who had mocked him now watched with wary respect. Others intensified their hostility, seeing him as a threat to the natural order. You've started something, Lyra told him one evening as they reviewed combat scenarios. Whatever happens in the tournament, the academy will never be the same. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility. Good. It needs to change. The galaxy is bigger than any one species' idea of superiority. The night before the tournament, Ethan stood alone in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, depending on him to prove humanity's worth. He thought of all the humans who had faced impossible odds throughout history: explorers, scientists, activists who changed the world by refusing to accept limitations. Tomorrow, he would enter the arena not just as Ethan Cross, but as the representative of all humanity. The galaxy's elite had mocked him, dismissed him, tried to break him. Now it was time to show them what humans were truly capable of. The adaptation phase was complete. The growth had been painful but necessary. Now came the ultimate test, not just of his combat skills, but of everything he had learned about himself, about humanity, and about the nature of true strength. As the stars wheeled overhead, Ethan closed his eyes and centered himself. Tomorrow, everything would change. The championship rise. The Galactic Combat Championship arena pulsed with energy as thousands of spectators from across the Alliance filled the massive spherical structure. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing competitor profiles and betting odds. Ethan Cross's image appeared last, with odds of 500 to 1 against, the longest in tournament history. The human won't survive the first round. A Krell spectator clicked to his companion. I've wagered a month's credits on his elimination. Ethan stood in the preparation chamber, methodically checking his equipment. The tournament allowed each competitor to bring one personalized weapon. While others carried plasma cannons or molecular disruptors, Ethan had chosen something simpler. A collapsible staff made from earth metals, perfectly balanced for his fighting style. Remember, Lyra said, making final adjustments to his combat suit, the preliminaries are single elimination. 15 fights. You need to win 10 to advance. I know the stakes, Ethan replied, his voice calm. Earth's future in the Alliance depends on this. The first gong sounded, calling competitors to the arena floor. As Ethan emerged into the light, a mixture of cheers and jeers greeted him. He spotted his support group in the stands: Lyra, Zek, Mora, and surprisingly, several cadets who had once mocked him. First match, the announcer's voice boomed: Ethan Cross of Earth versus Throck of the Gorian Empire. Throck was a mountain of muscle and scales, easily 3 times Ethan's mass. As they faced each other in the combat circle, Throck laughed. "I'll make this quick, little human." The starting signal flashed. Throck charged forward like a battering ram, exactly as Ethan had anticipated. Instead of retreating, Ethan stepped into the charge, using Throck's momentum to execute a perfect hip throw. The giant alien crashed to the ground with enough force to crack the arena floor. Before Throck could recover, Ethan's staff found pressure points he'd studied for months. The Gorian roared in pain as his left leg went numb. Within 60 seconds, the match was over. The arena fell silent, then erupted in confused murmurs. A human had just defeated one of the strongest species in the galaxy. "Lucky strike," someone shouted. But as the preliminaries continued, it became clear this was no fluke. Ethan's second opponent was a Celestian energy manipulator. While she focused on creating devastating energy blasts, Ethan used the arena's reflective surfaces to create confusion, striking from unexpected angles. His staff, designed with special insulation, allowed him to disrupt her energy field. Match after match, Ethan demonstrated why human adaptability was a weapon. Against a telepathic Vryn, he used meditation techniques to cloud his thoughts. Facing a chain Leonic shade, he spread reflective powder that revealed its location. Each victory showcased not just physical skill, but strategic thinking that left audiences stunned. By the 8th match, the betting odds had shifted dramatically. Ethan was no longer a curiosity. He was a contender. "He's making us all look like fools," Commander Vexthor growled, watching from the VIP box. "Each victory undermines the established order." Or perhaps, Ambassador Silith suggested, "He's showing us that our order needs evolution." The 10th victory came against Cora, a draconian warrior known for her flame breath. Ethan had prepared for this, coating his suit with a fire-retardant gel developed from his study of volcanic world creatures. When Cora unleashed her flames, Ethan emerged unscathed, using the smoke as cover to disable her with precise strikes. As the preliminary rounds concluded, the impossible had happened. A human had qualified for the tournament proper. That night, in his quarters, Ethan received an unexpected visitor. Zarkon, the reigning champion and pride of the Marduk Empire, stood at his door. 7 feet of pristine warrior perfection, Zarkon had never lost a match in 5 tournaments. "You fight well, for a lesser species," Zarkon said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "But the real tournament is different. We don't just fight to win. We fight to dominate, to prove superiority. You cannot hope to stand against true warriors." "We'll see," Ethan replied simply. Humanity has faced impossible odds before. The tournament proper began the next day with 32 qualified fighters. The rules were simple: win or be eliminated. No time limits, few restrictions, fight until submission or incapacitation. Ethan's quarterfinal opponent was Nexus, a cybernetically enhanced warrior from the Tech Consortium. Where Ethan relied on biology and training, Nexus was a fusion of organic and machine, capable of calculating thousands of combat scenarios per second. The fight pushed Ethan to his limits. Nexus's mechanical precision countered many of his techniques, but Ethan had learned something crucial about cyborgs. They relied too heavily on their calculations. By introducing chaos, random movements, illogical attacks, he forced Nexus to constantly recalculate, creating processing lag that he exploited. When Nexus finally fell, sparks flying from damaged circuitry, the crowd's reaction had changed. They were no longer jeering. They were witnessing something unprecedented. The semifinals paired Ethan against Vyra, a serpentine warrior whose species had dominated aquatic combat for millennia. The arena transformed into a water world, giving her every advantage. But Ethan had trained for this, studying human free-diving techniques and underwater combat. The battle was brutal. Virus coils could crush steel, and her venom could paralyze in seconds. Ethan used the water's resistance to slow her strikes, targeting the gills she needed to breathe. When she finally surfaced, gasping, he was waiting with a decisive strike. 2 fights, 2 victories. The human had reached the finals. The championship match was scheduled for the next day. Across the galaxy, billions tuned in to watch. On Earth, every screen showed the arena. Humanity held its breath. Ethan spent the night in meditation, centering himself for what was to come. Lyra found him at dawn, watching the sunrise through the station's viewport. "However this ends," she said, "you've already changed everything." The final arena configuration was revealed. A zero-gravity combat sphere with floating platforms and energy fields. Zarkon entered first, his ceremonial armor gleaming. When Ethan appeared, the crowd's roar was deafening. "Today," the announcer declared, "we witness history. For the championship of the Galactic Combat Tournament, Zarkon of Marduk, 5-time champion, versus Ethan Cross of Earth, the first human to reach the finals." The combatants faced each other in the sphere's center. Zarkon's eyes blazed with confidence. "When this is over," he growled, "your species will remember its place." "My species," Ethan replied, "is just beginning to find its place." The signal flashed. Zarkon launched himself forward with incredible force, using his species' natural adaptation to zero gravity. But Ethan had studied human space missions, understanding 3-dimensional combat in ways ground-based species couldn't imagine. The battle raged across the sphere. Zarkon's strength was overwhelming, each blow capable of shattering bone. But Ethan used the environment brilliantly, ricocheting between platforms, using energy fields to change direction unpredictably. As the fight progressed, something became clear. Zarkon was tiring. His species had evolved for short, decisive battles. Humans, persistent predators at their core, could maintain moderate effort almost indefinitely. "Why won't you fall?" Zarkon gasped, his movements becoming sluggish. "Because I carry more than myself," Ethan replied, launching a series of precise strikes. "I carry the hopes of my entire world." The end came suddenly. Ethan maneuvered Zarkon into a position where the champion's own momentum worked against him. Using a platform as leverage, Ethan applied a submission hold that even Marduk's strength couldn't break. For the first time in tournament history, Zarkon spoke the words, "I yield." The sphere fell silent. Then, as the reality sank in, erupted in chaos. A human had won the Galactic Combat Championship. The impossible had happened. As Ethan stood on the victory platform, the championship beacon illuminating him for all the galaxy to see, he thought of Earth. His victory meant more than personal glory. It meant humanity would have a voice in the military council. It meant protection for human colonies. It meant respect. In the VIP box, Commander Vexthor turned to Ambassador Syleth. "What have we done?" "What needed to be done," she replied. "We've allowed evolution." The ceremony concluded with Ethan receiving the champion's crest. As he held it aloft, he spoke, "This victory belongs not to me, but to humanity. We are not the strongest, the fastest, or the most powerful, but we adapt, we learn, we persevere, and sometimes that's enough to change the galaxy." Across human space, celebrations erupted. On Earth, people danced in the streets. In the colonies, settlers looked to the stars with new hope. And in the Galactic Council chambers, discussions began about elevating Earth's status in the Alliance. The next morning, Ethan found a crew of cadets outside his quarters. Species that had once dismissed humans now sought to learn from them. The Academy's rigid hierarchy had cracked, allowing new ideas to flourish. "You've started a revolution. Lyra told him as they watched cadets from different species training together. "No," Ethan smiled. "I've just reminded the galaxy of something it forgot. That strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the most powerful force is the ability to change." Months later, when Ethan returned to Earth as humanity's first combat champion, he was greeted as a hero. But he knew the real victory wasn't in the arena. It was in the minds of billions across the galaxy who now saw humans not as primitive newcomers, but as equals worthy of respect. The warrior they had mocked had not just defeated them, he had transformed them. And in doing so, he had secured humanity's place among the stars. The end.